Hey, thanks for coming out tonight, everybody, for, this is our 11th Slippery Elm.
Let's go!
Right? I feel like lower pressure because last year was 10, new anniversary and stuff, but 11, you know. Just another one. We've done the thing a few times, right? No, seriously, this is a fantastic issue, and I am pumped about it, and we got more overall submissions than ever before. As our student editors well know, Skylar Waddell and Maddie Patch were working hard on these, and other people were doing lots of reading. Emily Lynn was doing lots and lots of reading. I have a lot of people I need to thank you, but we got like 1,500 submissions or something for this issue, and something like under 30 some pieces in here. So and there was a lot of good stuff. Let's see. I should get into the thank yous. There's always people who forget that they're on our advisory board, but still are. Ron Tully, still on there. Thanks, Dr. Tully. Tim Murphy, who's still on the advisory board? I should tell him that. Cliff Garstad, Jamie Poissant, probably doesn't remember it, but Toby Buckell, our advisory. We don't ask them to advise much, but so it's an easy gig, right? But seriously, thanks to everyone in English. Thanks to Sarah Federica, our department chair, who's always so supportive of making the magazine happen and supporting taking our students to things. And there's a lot of internal stuff going on with this. And Brenda Sheeline, our admin assistant, who actually does the nuts and bolts of making the things happen and talking to the people to make things happen. And and Tony Wenzinger and the whole print shop for we don't print this in-house because Perfect Bound, but they do a lot for us in the mailroom. Darren Fields for academic affairs for continued support. Dr. Fell for continued support of the magazine. Other people reading on the issue who aren't here: Sarah Vasicki, Jada Dries, Morgan Long, Eden Steiger, Melanie Dussault, all read some things. Nikki Diedrich, who is here, read some things. Thanks, Nikki. If some of you are like, how would I work on this literary magazine? we can make something happen, right? Let's see. This year's cover photo is by Ben Bush, who's been in every Slippery Elm so far. He has a poem in here as well as the cover shot. He would want me to mention that he's pushing a very serious movie right now called Yeti with Machete. Very solid. Right?
Wow.
That's his new project. It should be fun. Let's see. So we have some people contributing to the issue here. Kerry Trautman is here, who's been in the issue more than anyone except Ben.
Oh.
Paula Lambert is here, who judged our contest. Thanks to Paula and our prose judge, Mike Chesnesky. Jeff Gundy is here. Jeff Gundy's been in several issues, right? And Noah Fishbach, who wasn't working on this issue, but is new to UF, and we're talking about running the show, Poetry Editor, next time around. And Ned Weidner is here. Ned Weidner just dropped in from California, right? Just because it was on the way. Have I said most of the thank yous stuff? Thank you all for coming out too. And thanks to the Marathon Center for Performing Arts for having us, to Carla Heitkamp and Heather Clove for always finding a place for us here. It's cool to do this in conjunction with Art Walk, and if you haven't had a chance already to go wander the studios and see the other things going on, that's happening now too. So I think this is the part where we throw to some of our contributing authors who might read from their pieces. Or some of our editors or judges who might like to read their favorite pieces. Maybe I have a fave in there too, but Open mic, anybody? Next. Paula, would you like to start?
I wanted to read the piece that was the winning poem.
Yeah, which you selected. Please.
If we're gonna start, we might as well start big.
Well, let's start with the winner, right? I feel like I should do more of an introduction. Paula J. Lambert, who has been in the issue and won our contest before, and was, we're grateful for the judging this year, and thanks for everything, Paula. So.
Yeah, this is where we move the mic way down here. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to come or not because I was back from a trip to Massachusetts, but I told Dave if I could that I would really like to read the winning poem if the poet wasn't going to be here. So this is Dante di Stefano. And I do want to say I've judged a number of contests, which is always an honor and always kind of fun and always a bit of work. But this is the first time I ever judged where I only received the finalists, right? So and that was a lot harder in a lot of ways, because I wasn't reading so much, but I was just given like 10 really great poems. So it was like, wow, okay, 10 really great poems. And you read, you figure things out, you put this one here and this one here, and they were all read multiple times. But I will say this one, every time I read it, I liked it even more. I mean, to me, it's just a really, really stunning poem. And it's a long poem, it's a bit of a long poem. And what impressed me the most in it was just the pace of it. To write a long poem can be tricky, right? So I'm hoping I do it some justice. This is The Tragic Sense of Life. If you have a copy and you're following along, it's page 51. And there's a bit of a longish epigraph by Miguel. I don't know how, I should have checked with you, Dave, to see how to say the name. Miguel de Unamuno? Yes? The Tragic Sense of Life.
I'll go with whatever he has.
It's painful to have to cease to be one day. Perhaps it would be even more painful to be oneself for all time and no more than oneself, never being able at the same time to be someone else, never being everything else as well, unable to be everything. So that's just the epigraph. Today, I am everything. My 2-year-old son putting his stuffed animal monkeys in a big yellow dump truck and chasing after me in the morning before work. My 5-year-old daughter folding up a crayon rainbow and cramming it in my pocket before I go out the door. My wife sipping coffee by the kitchen window as May brindles green on deeper green, the grass that strikes so greenly up dialogues with her smile. The giant golden doodle, sunny, inverted little daylight buffoon on a blue couch, the house a bright mess, and me always tired, and the high school students I teach seem bored most days, acridly aloof in that cutting style only teenagers can put on, like you've drowned kittens or squashed their pet gecko, who would have died prematurely anyway. That's what I say on bad days. And on good days, I'm surprised by how much I love these kids, these strangers' children, whom I help climb the rungs of the self. That's the first line that just got my heart and got it every time. Whom I help climb the rungs of the self. And it's not cool to discuss in poems, but I suddenly find myself in middle age, happier and fatter than ever before, and yet, despite or because of the fullness of this era I'm living through, I find myself dreaming death daily and minutely, and mourning the holy minutes as they bleed out and dagger in by the millisecond. Someday I will be nothing, and overcast days will not ache me onward, and rain won't fall on my upturned face as I recite a passage from Kafka's diaries, and I'll never be surprised by lines of poetry caught in the throat of the page I imagine in my mind. The neurons will no longer light up the map of my cerebrum. Every bird that doesn't yet exist will be forever forever blinkered out of possibility for the blank arc of unness that I will not even be. And in that blankness, sparrow and dust mote and molecule and fuzzy dots dancing in the periphery of no one's vision will be as one. And I will not even be able to crack open this grief like a lukewarm beer and guzzle it down and crush the can on my forehead like a goon in an 80s flick about high school students played by gorgeous 20-somethings. It makes me crazy with grief, leaping to melancholy deep in my bones, that I will one day not be in this depot and terminus and singing assembly of want and need and greet and goodbye and wings flapping in the dawn treetops and juggle and catch the red ball and the purple ball and the yellow ball that looks like the sun, no longer able to look with the heliocentric eyes of an Elizabethan woman in American sonnet published the year the Berlin Wall fell, no longer able to slip under the cobble foam fleece of waves in a Hopkins poem, no longer able to hear my mother's voice as she reads the book where the statue of the Christ child comes alive and catches the golden ball and the sad itinerant clown collapses and ceases to be. There is so much love in the world. It makes me want to shake you, dear reader, and kiss you on the cheek if that's okay, on the mouth if it's okay, and take your hand in my hand and know it will all be okay, because the ocean and egret and the crescent moon and Queen Anne's lace and apple and wagon and amoeba and cherry blossom rioting in a daydream of the wind, and my brothers and sisters all living together in the great big mansion of this one life, because millennia have and will come and go and gone. And my synapses are misfiring like characters in short stories who are just about to die, and lifetimes of caged budgies dying in basements, and love at first sight in my father's contorted face in the mirror at his last drops of morphine before dying, and the rage dying with the disappointments of decades, and every mistake and misconception and lashings out and missteps and feeling like autumn rewound under leviathans and tombstone emoji texts flooding under the eyelids, under the bloodstream pumping toward the red studio of the heart where poems take their first hesitant steps, pawing away from the trunk of the towering oak out front of the place I call home and can't now return to. I just love that poem. So congratulations to Dante and Stefano. And thanks for the chance to read it out loud.
Thank you, Paula.
Hi, I'm Tim Suermondt, and I'm going to be reading my poem, April Again, from the latest issue of Slippery Elm. April Again. The sunlight overwhelms the vestiges of the snowlight, yet even with the clarity, it's hard to tell if the man I see is walking the dog or the dog is walking the man, though both of them seem to have affection for each other, no matter who holds the whip hand. While I write lines in my head, I put on my shoes and coat and head out, ready for any adventure, large or small. Elliot, let's make this April the kindest month. We can do it. You'll be surprised at what I'll have written later, alone. Thank you.
The Earth Remembers 7 Sorrows by Majorie Maddox. 1. Come, says the wind, let us make of the air flame, spark, and desolation, dry wood and dead word, forked tongues bursting into Babel's rattle of confusion. The mountains' pines crackle their scratchy warning of horror across a valley slung low with heat, its murky grief soot in our throats, ash in our lungs, death in our eyes, each pupil a target of fear. 2. Hope is a small, charred thing buried in the nose, is a large, scarred wing careening on the wind, is a hot horizon blistering and bubbling. 3. Yesterday a man sat aflame with loss on the grassless plaza of the Supreme Court, meditating on the self-immolation of monks protesting war, on the driven sacrifice of climate advocates exploding excuses. To burn oneself by fire, said Thich Nhat Hanh, is to prove that what one is saying is of utmost importance. There is nothing more painful. Or yesterday, a man sat not meditating, but legs outstretched, silent, 60 seconds of wildfire across his skin. Only later, flames finally extinguished, did his howl reverberate across a city, the burnt nation, the too late prayers for the dead. What did the wind say then but weep and turn, move and rise, remembering the cries where no ear listens, the marble plaza quiet again, the motto, justice, the guardian of liberty, far away on the other side, still pretending the sun is rising. 4. And what of the sun, ignition, combustion, a god's blast of rage, what Prometheus stole as warmth incinerates any good intentions, pride, the flammable concoction that leads to consequence, humanity's arson of the earth. Each morning the eagle of Zeus returns, circles the rocky planet, peck, 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 peck. 5. Stony cliffs tumble, slick glaciers slide into gulf, but what warms still swirls into storm, extremes once again colliding. Snow, smog, blizzard, smoke, 4 sides of the same. Tornadoes, the torch that lights the cold of bomb, cyclone, freezes the heat we need in this other season before each cycle reshatters completely. 6. Or fractures from fracking, groundwater tinged with who we've become. The earth is the Lord's, poisoned with explosions, with what's injected into the heart of fissure, camouflaged as rock, as need, as 10 cents off on the dollar at the chain gas station down the street from our neighbor's clearing where, once upon a time, we played touch football, surrounded by idealism and deer. Afterwards, from the neighbor's well, we'd slurp water as cool and clear as memory, then spit it out, the undeserved taste of clarity, still too much to swallow. 7. In the fallen Eden of long ago, plastic leaves scattered, scattering. So much despair to swallow, this blue memory of all our tossed out refuse, tinged with autumn's brittle decay, summer's discarded leisure, winter's stony chill coming. What shall we sip this spring when we walk the long gravel path back to choice, when we count what still can be counted? Somewhere the tea leaves reel in their rows, the luxury of extra sweet, cool in our throats. The seasons keep changing. Restore what can still be restored.
I'm going to be reading the poem Wasp on page 37. A wasp flies into my room. Like a child, it toddles toward the withered arrowhead. Then the top of a perfume bottle stumps at the glass mask. As if wide and sure of itself, it swoops through the air, bumping into the ceiling and the pane of the door. I fling open the windows to let the wasp stagger and starve elsewhere. I don't want a small, curled-up body perfected in the design of decay on my windowsill. I don't want to slide it onto a piece of paper and shake it off the balcony the way a man kills himself before dark. Outside, the pavements are strewn with wasp corpses. They lie on their side like miniature funeral wreaths. I want to be sung now, and cry and curse. There has to be at least one who is faithful.
Airplane Mode by Henry Crawford. There is nothing moving, just flying, as if a field or feather in solitude flung, a humming, darkness lit, breathing air, nothing in between the eyes, held slowly in seams of skylight. Taking on lands, landing, there is nothing wrong in wholly flying, just hovering within inches of daylight. In airplane mode, our empty mansions, our flying houses, our 0-0, our windows blowing, our love in sheets of minutes. Spun to us, there is nothing outside our belly-to-belly blood, our flying water, love. We are nothing but water. Bronzed our lips a river wide, there is nothing lost, flying light. In airplane mode, touch we softly the ever finite line.
I'm Jeff Gundy. It's been a great, it's been a really fun and a privilege to be sort of connected to Slippery Elm over the years, and mulberries. There was a big mulberry tree in the back of the house I grew up in, which my mother tried to keep us away from, but yeah, that's another question. So my poem is called Split in 3 Movements. Split is the city in Croatia along the coast, and we did a cruise not too long ago and came in on this big boat tied up, and there was this stairway coming down along this kind of cliff by the side of by the water, and it made me think of the last lines of this great poem by Edwin Arlington Robinson, who's a sort of old-fashioned poet. But the poem's called Eros Tyrannos, and it ends with this thing about love and this couple who's been desperately unhappy, but they finally decide to stay together. And it's something like, love is like waves changing, it may be, or like a changed familiar tree, like waves breaking, it may be, or like a changed familiar tree, or like a stairway to the sea where down the blind are driven. It's just like, whoa, where is this coming from? Anyway, so this made me think of that, and but then the rest of the poem kind of circles around that. Split, of course, and that whole area has been changed hands, changed governments, I don't know how many times over the centuries, and so the poem is sort of about that too. It's 3 parts. 1, history is annoying, Lucius said. We learn nothing, yet we do the wars again. Our guide to Split, she was a child during the war, and now here we go again, she said as they led us through Diocletian's palace. He stabilized the empire, raised taxes, tried and failed to kill off the Christians. Then, strangely, he retired to his giant palace, grew cabbages. Then the empire turned Christian, and complications ensued, as we all know. The good people of Split bent to the Venetians, Austria-Hungary, Mussolini, Tito. This is not a complete or precise history, but Lucia kept walking and I took no notes. 2. The stairway to the sea remains weathered but usable, and a man comes down it daily to smoke and ponder the unsettled waters. The waves mutter, the limestone cliffs climb to meet the plane trees, lush and green, the abandoned cola factory, the harbor tower, and the bell tower behind. 2 lovers help each other down the steps. 3. History is annoying, Lucia said, and it seemed she might speak of her losses, her grief. But no, we stood on the ancient stones, 30 strangers to her and to each other. The tour was over and she thanked us, and we clapped a little, and some of us tipped her, and elsewhere the wars went on.
Thanks, Jeff.
I mentioned I was traveling earlier, and I visited George Looney in Gary, Pennsylvania, so I want to read George's poem. And this was a finalist, and I was entirely relieved. You know, when I got the names afterward, I was entirely relieved that I did not recognize George's work, because he is a friend. And then once I thought about it, I said, how did I not recognize this as George's work? But A Charm of Goldfinches. It's that time of early morning, nothing is certain. What might be a truck downshifting out on the highway could be someone whispering. Could be someone whispering the unutterable word I need to figure out how to say to a dead lover, to deserve her forgiveness for the sin of omission, what I didn't say to her when she was alive and she could have heard it. The murmur of some solitary night bird could be, instead, the official notice a fine I forgot to pay is long past due. The interest more now than the fine was, more than I'll ever be able to pay off. What could almost be a woman humming a tune I once knew the words to might be the past warning me it's not finished with me, despite being, I like to think, behind me. The voice of the woman who has started singing words that aren't the words I thought I remembered could be an admonition against thinking I know anything with any certainty. Once, someone pointed to a bird and said it was a goldfinch. I was in Kinsale, Ireland, and though I made room for things being different due to what the accent did to words I was familiar with, I was sure it was no goldfinch. It was. What I knew as goldfinch was American. This was a European goldfinch, not the cadmium lemon bird with the stark blackened brow and black wings with white markings that ignites often the morning fog in my backyard, which can be so thick the notion of set boundaries is up in the air, as they say. On such mornings, to believe I can name whatever birds shiver the fallen clouds they flicker through is foolhardy at best, and doubt hums a music whose lyrics remain unwritten, pending, as they say. Nothing's as close to forgiveness as early morning fog. No matter what birds call out through its relative discretion, the songs comprise a language neither the past nor any incarnation of it I might want to believe in could ever allow me to understand. A language, a music in a morning air teeming with goldfinches, in which forgiveness could be held in my arms while we danced.
Hi, everybody. Knowing Paula was judging this contest, of course I know it's judged blind, but I threw in a poem that has birds in it just because I'm like, it's Paula's judging, only there's some birds in there.
I will say there were an inordinate number of bird poems.
They sniffed you out. Okay, so this is repainting the porch railing. Blue jays heckle my proximity to their mulberry tree. Church bells ring noon, 13, 18 chimes, and I realize it's 2 churches timed seconds apart. The squirrel eats berries branch to branch, shaking carry-ons of overnight rain to my hair. How many berries can one squirrel eat in a morning? 7? 40? Jesus could have fed the 5,000 with one mulberry tree and still made blood wine. Jays squawk their purple want. I want crisp white trim, siding gray as night rain, and mulberry trees full of beaks and paws. But no purple shit on my porch. No ferment in gutters. I want church bells, but no churches. I want a glass of mulberry wine blessed only by beaks and paws. Durable roofs, creation hands, raindrops on every forehead, songs in every branch, a sky for every voice to sing to, and every belly full of purple.
Hello, I'm Peggy Liuzzi, and I'm here to read my poem, A Message from the Dead. How delighted I was to join the legion of dead souls, invisible but present, filling the streets around your house, milling like watchers waiting for a parade. But don't be afraid, we're just curious, excitedly eager for all we've been missing. We long to see the people we knew. We sigh and smile at your antics like doting parents. We adore your dense gravity, your bright colors, your mastery of movement, your speech quick and slow, the froth of your laughter, the salt in your tears, your hands catching light like wind-spun aspen leaves. Don't be afraid of us. We need you. You are the anchors that hold our shadows to this bright, sweet world. You are the treasures to which we cling, stubborn as dry brown burrs, holding fast to your favorite fall sweater. Thank you.
Well, how y'all doing? Good. Well, I'm Ned Weidner, and I was an equestrian student like 25 years ago, and walked around the farm and met some old friends, and it's really, that arch that's like the University of Findlay? I remember like my freshman year, them telling us like, you can walk through that arch in the beginning, but then you'll never walk through that arch again until you actually graduate, right? And I remember looking at that arch like every single day that I was on campus and almost cursing it. Because I felt like it was like this, I don't know, I couldn't really see myself making it beyond 4 years, making it beyond like a year, And so like today, I sat there and I looked at that arch and I just I walked through it, and it even though I didn't earn it here, but I did eventually earn a bachelor's and a master's and a PhD, so in some way I did, but it's been a really, really interesting day, so I'm happy to be here. But I'm going to read a piece from a memoir that I'm peddling, or trying to get published, I suppose. It's on page 108. It's called Ponce de Leon and Everlasting Life. And so Possum Hollow is a place, it's where I grew up. It's actually that's going to fall, I'm going to catch it. But right here. Yeah, so it's about a place called, it's about an experience in a place called Possum Hollow. Ponce de Leon and Everlasting Life. In high school, we learned about the Spanish explorers. At least that's what folks called them back in Ohio back then. And one always stuck out with me, Ponce de Leon. He was the one who was searching for the fountain of youth, the natural spring that would bring everlasting life to those who drank from it. He killed, raped, and marauded his way through the Americas in search of the spring and shiny riches. He never found it, though, and eventually died in Puerto Rico, fatally wounded after an attempt to establish a Spanish colony in Florida. I always wondered if anyone found those springs. I lived on a farm in the hills of Appalachia in a place known as Possum Hollow. We had springs there. One flowed softly out of the loamy earth above a horse paddock and into a crevasse tucked into the hillside, where it collected into a pond of sorts. There was a flat ridge above it. I used to bush hog a path through the grass and the brush to the top of the ridge. It was often dangerous cutting on that steep hillside with my dad's 1952 Ford 9N tractor and its rigid body. I nearly flipped the old thing on more than one occasion. But my parents liked walking to the spring, even if it wasn't the prettiest place on earth. And I enjoyed sitting on the ridge and watching the weather roll by. Over time, the spring became thick with algae and scum. A muddy, sticky odor often hung close, primordial. One day I walked up to that spring, drowning in the soup of a black void only a heartbroken addict knows. My mind could not unsee the memory of her, my love and partner on top of him. It was our bed. There wasn't enough Jim Beam or pills to make the pain go away. I sat down heavy amidst the fescue on the ridge. Grasshoppers and katydids sang in the brush. Horses grazed in the paddock below. What ifs, could be's, and might have been swirled in the clouds above. I sat cross-legged watching the clouds roll in. I felt in my left pocket and touched the oxys tucked into the corner. I closed my eyes and with my right, reached down and felt the cold barrel of a .22 my grandfather left me before he died. I was told he bought the gun to protect his family, my mom and aunt. Now it was mine. I picked it up with both hands and clutched it against my chest. A horse whinnied below as I clicked the safety to red, slid back the bolt, and put a bullet into the chamber. Then I wrapped my lips around the barrel and wept. It was summer. I pulled the trigger, nothing. I tried again, still nothing. I looked down at the spring, then the horses grazing below. Everlasting life, I thought.
This is certainly one that goes a bit with the darker theme of the book. It's actually right after, so it's on page 112. If you did want to follow along, and I'm just going to read the first little part of that, because it is quite a bit long. I don't remember much about the time I nearly drowned. Drunk on Smirnoff ice in the middle of the day, swimming in the ocean for the first time, caught in a rough tide. Its current repelling me from the shore. The harder I swam for the beach, the harder the Atlantic tugged me. Swept out past the pier, hundreds of yards from Jess on her beach towel, reading a fantasy novel. The distance between us lengthening by the moment. I shouted to the lifeguards as loudly as I could. The beach was too crowded. Choppy waves sloshed warm salt water into my mouth, choking me. I gasped for air. I flapped my arms wildly. I remember hearing the swallows cry overhead as I flipped onto my back, kicking, recalling the swimming lessons that this is the This is the preferred methodology if you're in danger of drowning. I don't remember how long it took me to get back to shore. I remember staggering from the sea. A dark circle grew in my field of vision. My ears rang. I remember collapsing into the sand and getting the worst sunburn I've ever had, my forehead blistering for weeks after.
Hi, I'm Carla Barger, and I'll be reading my poem Bloodroot, which is included in this issue of Slippery Elm. Thank you so much to the editors for giving this poem a home. Bloodroot. The hill above the creek bed is where we kids learned to tuck ourselves into tight bundles like pill bugs and let gravity perform its witchcraft. Down we'd roll along the jagged edges of the dilapidated culvert toward the tawny water. We'd land on the smooth pebbles of the bank, pocked with cans and wadded Walmart bags. Even now, I remember the smell of the stagnant plunge pool, the spongy carpet of moss growing over the rusted refrigerator, tilted into the culvert a generation before, so soft as we pressed our fingers against it. We used the old tires as stepping stones to slip into the slow stream with the tadpoles. I always wanted to play Ophelia, but instead had to navigate, to stretch my arms above me in the water like a Jesus bug, or divining rods for degradation. It was a disconcerting education in the law of succession, our filthy crown from generations past. Downstream, we'd emerge covered in pungent mud, plastic six-pack rings threaded between our fingers, and dragonflies dancing around our hair. Then we'd do it all over again, trying harder to train our eyes on the passing bloodroot sheltered beneath the bur oak, the bullfrogs screaming in hackberry. Thank you.
I'm Melissa Cole, and I'm reading from my short story, The Liminality of a Decent Couch. The couch is hideous. Shit brown with clusters of tiny hot pink flowers scattered over it, as if a giant punk rock drag queen has given her giant dandruffy scalp a good long itch while sitting on it. Amelia isn't the kind of person who uses words like shit brown, even in the service of accurate description. And she isn't someone who maligns giant punk rock drag queens either. She's feeling kind of bad about it. But the sticky, slow pace of the days leading up to her departure from her mother's house has taken its toll. Only 8 to go, she tells herself, which isn't particularly helpful when her mother is caressing the shit brown couch with more tenderness than she's shown Amelia in years. Amelia ignores her and catalogs the positives in her life, an exercise she found in an online issue of Cosmopolitan magazine a couple of weeks ago. 1. The medicated shampoo has banished all signs of her own, typically whitish dandruff. 2. She's well rested from shutting herself in her room to avoid contact with the other inhabitants of her house, resulting in 3. A lessening of the purple bags that customarily sit beneath her eyes. 4. She's even lost a few pounds since graduation. She's never sure whether her mother is going to criticize her for being too fat or too skinny. The margin for error is razor thin. But either way, it's best to err on the side of hunger. Amelia reaches the end of her positive thoughts, but her mother has not moved on from the shit brown couch. I hate it, Amelia says, to, move on. What do you hate about it? There's nothing to hate. Her mother brushes at the upholstery as if Amelia is missing something crucially not awful. Who brings a brown couch to college? The word shit won't form on Amelia's tongue. She'll become someone capable of swearing in front of her mother once, ironically, she's gone. She'll be loose and funny, and she won't mumble. A regular Tiffany Haddish, only white and Jewish, and until this point in her life, not really known for her sense of humor. Tiffany Haddish, she imagines, didn't have to wait until college to become funny. Have you ever seen a college dorm couch? Her mother makes her pinched lemon face. So much filth. The brown will hide the grossness. But will it? Amelia allows herself a quick couch caress. The upholstery is slick beneath her fingers. It's pretty gross all on its own. I think it's kind of cute. Her mother takes a step back and tilts her head in a show of really looking, which is something she never does, unless she's looking at a house she intends to sell, and even then, it's hard to discern what it is she's seeing besides dollar signs. Anyhow, it's good enough. You can leave it behind when you transfer. Amelia is not, it should be made clear, transferring. Her mother has this plan. Amelia has not been consulted, has played, in fact, exactly no part in it whatsoever, in which Amelia earns stellar grades during her first semester and then transfers to a better class at school. UCLA, maybe even. Her mother has never dared whisper the possibility, doesn't believe Amelia capable. Cal. Amelia imagines the word coming out of her mother's mouth with rapturous desire. Cal. How? She asks, instead of saying it's just not happening. Such pronouncements have a long history of failure. Are you so sure I'll be transferring? The quirk of her mother's eyebrows holds no small amount of pity. Whether you do or not, I'm not going to spend a lot of money on a dorm room couch. This one's good enough. An amoeba of panic slides around the pit of Amelia's stomach. She cannot start college as that girl with the shit brown couch. What about this one? She flings an arm in the direction of an overstuffed little red number. It lists slightly to one side, but that's probably just the overstuffing. Her mother takes a few steps toward it, her heels clicking on the warehouse floor. Her body curves away as she examines it, as if it's a stray dog whose mange must be kept away from her own skin. Not good enough, she announces.
So it occurred to me to read this one. It's the first poem, the first anything in the issue, and I thought this was cool because it's by Jim Daniels. I don't know Jim Daniels. He doesn't know me, but I'm pretty sure the first thing I ever published anywhere was on a facing page to one of his works. I think it was Folio, like a few years ago, way back there. And I don't remember much about my own piece. I don't remember what poem of his it was, but I remember looking at it and thinking, I'm next to this guy. This is all right. He's doing good stuff. Cool. I've arrived, man. Wow, yeah. So I haven't told him that story either, but I guess if he sees this in the video, cheers, Jim. Hope I will do your poem justice here. Lemons as Big as Grapefruit by Jim Daniels. When I am depressed, I think about the giant lemons of Amalfi. If lemons this big can exist, glowing like small suns in their lush green trees, then maybe something good is possible in the next cup of coffee. When I am depressed, I think about Pompeii, the contorted bodies preserved in ash, a short drive from the lemons. I often forget the second I in Pompeii, the modern city removed it. I bought a dozen and squeezed them for the juice. I couldn't add enough sugar. That's my problem. Ash in my coffee. I stir and stir. I have no second eye.